Velodrome Finance is potentially my favorite DEX on the market right now. They have a super professional team, they are building like crazy, and eventually they want to achieve what they label as a meta DEX. So this is a place where they bundled up all the services that you could think of. I'm not talking about leverage trading because that's glorified gambling in my opinion. I'm talking about simple spot trading, liquidity provision, and all the value capture that comes with it. Because the token, VELO, does have amazing value capture. Sorry to interrupt you there, folks. I just want to quickly chime in and mention that we are currently working on a project called Numerical. It's DeFi as a service, meaning you'll get exposed to real DeFi protocols that generate real revenue, aka real yield, and you're gonna get a cut of this without doing the setup yourself. All you have to do is enter, claim, or withdraw. Very simple. So your capital is available at all times to take, and you can choose the option where to invest. More details in the description and in our community chat. But if we want to compare it to its sister DEX, Aerodrome, and its explosive growth over the past few weeks, we can still see lots of potential in regards to catching up, because at the end of the day, they both provide the same thing, just on different chains. All right. So, like I said, Aerodrome has seen explosive growth in terms of TVL, in terms of token price, in terms of bribes, in terms of all of its metrics that surround a basic V33 DEX. However, these two are a bit more than that. So they have taken the concept, but they have outgrew the concept beyond the basics of what the flywheel is. And you could argue that on the Binance Smart Chain, there is a very close competitor, ThenaFi, and potentially I will speak about them in a future video. Now, going back to comparing these two right now, if we're just gonna take the fully diluted market cap or fully diluted valuation, 142 mil compared to the Aero one at 587 mil, you can clearly see that there is at least a 4x potential in regards to the price catching up to the Aero token right now. So simple math takes VELO at 40 cents if it were to match the market cap of Aero today. Because simply put, VELO has more circulating supply. VELO has been around much more than Aero in terms of length and liquidity provision on chain. All right, so Velodrome has been released first, and then almost a year later, if not more, Aerodrome came in. So obviously they have more supply than Aerodrome. But so far, just by comparing market caps, that's 4x the price of what it stands in right now. If you look at how much revenue Velodrome has siphoned so far, that's the term that I just mentioned. If you want to learn more of what this means, because they also basically changed the way they are deploying their liquidity, and they have adopted something called Slipstream. Now, I am yet to do a deep dive on this, but that is the equivalent of Uniswap V3. Because remember, the type of liquidity that they both provide is a bit different. So if you want to learn more about what this is, I might do a video on this actually, but I am yet to, grow on the details much. But eventually, like I said, if you scroll down, you can clearly see that they have posted how much cumulative volume that they have acquired so far and the amount of fees that they have distributed. Quite impressive numbers. And that is 8 times the cumulative volume that Aerodrome has siphoned over time. But remember, I told you that Velodrome has been around longer, 100%, and at some point the Optimism layer 2 chain has had more total value locked than what Base does right now. And I think in terms of volume, they are either matching or Base could potentially have a bit more. So just looking at DeFi Llama right now, you can clearly see the difference in terms of growth scope, right? So Velodrome has approximately 50% of the total value locked on Optimism overall. And unfortunately, the big part of the cake is taken by Synthetics and Aave. So because right now the market is highly leveraged, obviously Aave has a lot of TVL because many people are going to Aave to borrow funds. Funding rates are increasing, interest rates on borrowing funds are increasing, and the same goes for depositing rates. So people are driven to put more money there. So as soon as there's a tide shift there, instead of people putting their liquidity into lending markets, they would probably go on DEXs and provide liquidity there. So that makes total sense to me. However, if we compare this to the base chain versus Aerodrome, Aerodrome comprises almost 45% of the total value locked. So you see the growth in terms of ratio comparison, optimism versus base, Velodrome versus Aerodrome. So overall, because of this, because there's a lot of trading activity right now going on the base chain versus optimism, Aerodrome is basically building up more fees, and you can clearly see that by looking at the revenue acquired in 24 hours, which are the fees technically, compared to Velodrome. So we're talking about 35.8k versus 276.3k. So that's a lot in terms of that's almost $250,000 in terms of comparative growth, just fees alone. So there is lots of room for improvement, but I wouldn't blame Velodrome for the lack of fees. It's simply because there isn't much trading activity happening on optimism versus base. And when the tide shifts again, when there's more trading activity on optimism, then you would see more of fees being generated on Velodrome, and that's completely normal, right? So optimism is a very, if I want to label degen chains versus normal chains, professional chains, so on and so forth, I would say that optimism is super professional. Like, you rarely find a scam or a shitcoin or whatever, a rug pull on optimism, whereas basically every other chain has so many of them, namely Solana, the Binance Smart Chain, etc, etc. Base, not so many, but still there's more shitcoins being deployed on Base than optimism. Honestly, I haven't heard of potentially any recently. Now, because of this, you wouldn't have the degen money that is flowing into these shitcoins and meme coins recently on optimism. You have more professional DeFi protocols, which unfortunately are taking the short end of the stick in regards to liquidity right now, because most of this liquidity is hovering into those gambling plays and downright casino, Russian roulette type of plays, and that's the unfortunate situation. And last thing I want to basically look at here is what is the VELO basically value capture in terms of what is it giving you when you vest the token on both Velodrome and Aerodrome. And you can simply look at this by comparing the VAPRs. And currently, if we remove the first one, which is an outlier compared to the rest, you can see that we're sitting at 72% at the highest end, whereas on Aero we're sitting at 63% on the highest end. So Velo gives you more in this epoch. Remember, we're dealing with this on an epoch by epoch basis, so weekly basis. So this time Velodrome is giving more, next time, potentially next week, Aerodrome will be giving more. But remember, we're still 3 days away from the end, so all of these metrics tend to shift completely towards the end of each epoch. This is where most of the money, most of the bribe money comes in. This is when most of the voters take action. Usually voters stay at the very last second, and they go on these platforms, they circle the best VPR, and then they vote instantly. The only people who vote initially, in my personal opinion, are the people who are behind these projects, or the people who want to give a lot of weight to these pairs because they are heavily invested in them, and therefore they want the most from their investment. So that makes perfect sense. But if people just want to focus on getting the most out of the buck they hold, then they have to wait until the last hour, the last 30 minutes, so on and so forth, because lots of these metrics change completely. And there you have it. This is a very basic comparison. There is lots of room for growth in regards to the VELO price. I don't think currently it does justice to what it serves. Aerodrome basically is, in my personal opinion, at the right valuation, potentially a bit more overvalued. But again, if you compare these valuations to the likes of Uniswap, which currently holds no value capture in regards to its Uni token, then there is lots of room for growth, because versus Uniswap, Aero and Velo does hold value capture because they give you back a portion of the revenues generated by the platform, and you could argue that it is a very big portion if we are capping in at 72% VAPR. That is a 72% return per annum, just to put it out there. We do have a Telegram community. Feel free to join us. Lots of professional and highly driven people. We talk a lot about crypto and DeFi stuff. You will have fun. You won't regret it. And with that, see you in the next one. Have a good one.